So, as the days go by, you know, a lot more people are coming out, those even in the business, those that are close to Kevin Smith or have worked with him, collabed with him. A lot of people have actually agreed that what Kevin Smith did, trying to backtrack, his words, basically, what he said and everything about, you need to grow up, and, I didn't mean to lie, I didn't mean to be like this, I didn't mean to call people out and stuff like that. A lot of people in the business, like I said, and even those that have worked with Kevin, have basically, come out and said, look, that was wrong of you to do. If you're going to, promise one thing and deliver something else, if you're going to constantly lie about it, while you're promoting, it as being, this and it's not, then that's not good on your part. That ruins your reputation. That ruins the trust, anybody could have in you if they want to work with you in the future. And, one person was on Midnight's Edge morning podcast today, and they said they know Kevin, they've worked with Kevin, and they say Kevin's a good person. They've even said that they believe, because of how well they know Kevin, that they believe just by his reactions and his statements, his backtracking, and even his forward tracking, where it's like he takes back what he says, but then he continues to put more gasoline on the fire, if you will, that they believe what they're seeing is Kevin, saying a lot of this out of regret. That they could tell that this is a Kevin Smith that deep down regrets what he's done, and is probably regretting having to come out and say these things that he's saying. And they even kind of put out the fact that during this podcast, they even kind of talk about the fact that they believe that basically the Masters of the Universe revelation we got was more Ted Biaselli's interpretation of it, instead of what Kevin Smith wanted to do. Because this one guy on the Midnight's Edge podcast this morning came out and said specifically, that Kevin Smith would be the kind of guy that would, basically walk back any suggestions that would, take the show in the direction it's gone in. That basically Kevin Smith would be like, no, we can't do that because, that's going to cause trouble. But basically, they did point out a video, the video that Kevin Smith put out the day the show debuted officially, where he basically mentioned the fact that, Biaselli would ask Kevin Smith, can we do this, can we do that, and Kevin would be like, yeah, sure, no problem, cool, I'm cool with that, whatever you want to do. And I think, what this guy, and his name was Chris, was trying to point out is Kevin probably wouldn't have agreed to this had he known what direction it was going to go in. But, what are you going to do? And the reason I bring all this up is because, like I said, when you have people within the business that have worked with, Kevin Smith, have worked with Ted Biaselli, have, collabed with them, on other projects as well, in the past and possibly in the future, when you hear them, come out, well, maybe not in the future, but when you hear them come out and basically, I wouldn't say shame Smith and Biaselli, for what they did, but basically, I would say kind of, hold them responsible for betraying the trust of the fans, of the consumers. When you have people that have worked with them in the past, if not currently, coming out and saying that, then yeah, you pretty much have put your rep, in jeopardy. You pretty much put your rep into a situation to where you might be able to still do projects, people still might work with you, but there's going to be trust issues. Like, they'll probably work with you and because they like what you're presenting to them, but there'll be a doubt in the back of their mind, like, can I really trust and believe what this guy is saying? And I think that's kind of what they were alluding to in that podcast this morning. And a prime example of this for me, as a Sonic fan, and I know it's not surprising I would bring that up, but as a Sonic fan, an example of this is when Ian Flynn came on board. A lot of us were happy he was coming on board. A lot of us kind of understood why he was making certain decisions. We were fine with that. We were cool with that. Even though we didn't like how he was, approaching, those decisions he was going to make and, showcase in the comic, we were okay with that. That is until we got to basically 225, and then moving forward after that. Basically when Ian Flynn came on board, obviously one of his goals was to get Sally and Sonic back together, and he did that. He teased the fact that during the Iron Dominion arc / Journey to the East arc, that it seemed like Sally might go with Monkey Khan, who was now known as Ken Khan. He teased that, and as I've said before, that was basically more like a romance that you would seen in the Saved by the Bell made-for-television movies like Hawaiian Style and the Saved by the Bell summer episodes or summer job episodes, where Zach fell in love with these two girls individually, but it didn't go beyond anything but the movie and those episodes, and that was it. Anyway, long story short, he teased us with that, but then afterwards, I think we all kind of knew, even during that portion, that was just one of the big steps he was taking to getting these two back together. And afterwards, building up to 222, we started getting more hints and moments between them, kind of signaling that, yeah, these two are going to be an item, once again very soon. And when that moment happened, we were all happy. We all were, thrilled about it, because yes, finally you got it right here. You got something right, or you gave us what we wanted. You do understand where we're coming from as a fan. But then, like I said, 225 happened. The ending of that. And then that led us into the Sonic Genesis storyline, which celebrated the 20th anniversary, or 25th anniversary at the time. And then after that, after the Sonic Genesis storyline, is when, the real betrayal in the eyes of a lot of longtime fans came to pass, when basically Ian Flynn wrote it into the story, into issue 30, that Sally would be roboticized. Now, here's the thing. He did write it to the point that Sally basically put her friends, her family, and the planet that she loves first and foremost before her own freedom, which is a noble act, there's no doubt about it. But the way he went about it in the eyes of a lot of folks, including myself, is he made Sally and even Nicole, look incompetent. Like, Nicole's an AI. She's hacked into the system. You don't think she could, direct the roboticizing laser, to the side of the ship and make sure it hits nothing but air. You have her being able to do this, but yet you don't have her do that, is what I'm trying to say. And instead you have Sally order her or ask her to, redirect the laser onto them, onto the locale. And the end result was Sally being roboticized and turned into Mecha Sally. And then to really, feel like, Ian put the knife in your back and was twisting it even more so, you had the weaponization of Sally, from what she was to what she became, as Mecha Sally. You had that weaponization, and that right there, like I said, felt like the knife that Ian had put in everybody's back from the point of view of longtime fans, being twisted even further into their back. Because of the fact that now you took a beloved character and you basically, as some people put it, I think at one point, you butchered her. You gutted her, as some would put it, and made her into this weapon of destruction that, I guess, give him some credit somehow, in some places, that, look like, just by little hints here and there, little teases here and there, like little moments here and there in the panels, that it looked like she was trying to break through, but it seemingly was impossible, if you will. you turn her into this, you have her say the things that she's saying. And again, it felt like the knife being plunged further and further into the back of the fans, twisted more and more and more. And basically, this was all to lead to the fact that once originally she got her free will and she was de-roboticized, that the weaponized look she got would result into the look that she now has, or she was last known for. But thankfully, or not so thankfully, depending on how you look at it now, that didn't come to be because of behind the scenes lawsuits, from Ken Penders and others that prevented, any further explanation or exploration, if you will, of the story. And that resulted in the story being softly retconned and rebooted after the first Mega Man Sonic Worlds Collide crossover. Basically when he did that to Sally, it felt, like he had put the knife in the back of the fans, longtime fans, and was twisting it. And here's what's ironic though. Just like with the Teela situation right now, and the show right now, there were some fans that did enjoy what happened because they felt it was great character development. It was going to help build up Sally and help build up the freedom fighters, into being more likable and being more, stronger than they've ever been. And like I've said before, and others have said before, when it comes to Revelation, if you liked it, fine. That's, more power to you. Cool for you. More power to you is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, it basically is very similar in a way. Because it wasn't just, here's the thing. It wasn't just Sally that Ian Flynn had basically modified or mutilated. It was Bunny. It was Antoine. It was Nicole. It was Mina Mongoose. Even some of the established game characters like Amy Rose and Knuckles got it. And even Sonic. They ended up getting it, just as bad as Sally. Now, Sally obviously got it worse, but they ended up in the same kind of situation. And when a lot of people saw that happen to them, they looked at this and they're like, longtime fans of this, they're like, this isn't the freedom fighters. This is not who they are. What's the point of this? What's going on here? And, long story short, basically a lot of his decisions came back to bite him. Because after the soft retcon and reboot occurred between 252 and 256, that's when a lot of eternal changes like writing, for certain characters when it comes to certain stories had changed according to a lot of people. Like, Ian Flynn could no longer write for female characters in their own individual stories because of what he had done to Sally and Bunny and a few others. And thus that task was given to the likes of Evan Stanley and Aaliyah Baker. Excuse me there. So yeah, basically he hurt any chance he had of doing any more stories that would focus solely on characters like Sally and Bunny and Loop and Amy and all them because of what he had done. It's like it was like, okay, you could write the main stories with them involved in there, or you could write the main stories with the help of someone like Aaliyah or Evan giving you some advice on how to write them. That's fine. But when it comes to their own solo stories, like let's say the Sonic Universe story arc Spark of Life, forget it. You're not going to touch them. That's going to be in the hands of Aaliyah and Evan. And, Ian Flynn, basically, when you hear, that kind of information, behind the scenes information coming out, has no one but himself to blame. He has no one but himself to blame. And, as strange as a comparison as it is to, what's going on with Ian Flynn, not Ian Flynn, but Kevin Smith and Ted Biaselli, like I said, when you have people in the business that have worked with them, collabed with them, in the past and in the present, possibly in the future, coming out and saying, basically the same things, or at least agreeing to an extent to those that have said that, Kevin Smith lied, Ted Biaselli betrayed us and all that. When you have them coming out and agreeing to an extent, and that, you're absolutely right about that, but then also giving their explanation by knowing the person as to why they believe they probably didn't want to do this, but they had no choice and stuff. You kind of see a similarity. You kind of do see a similarity, if you will. Now, Ian Flynn obviously did the Sally thing, on his own accord, maybe with the approval of Sega or whatever. But I don't think Sega, because they do own the character, by the way, would have wanted the story to go any further than what they probably thought, along with the rest of us, it was going to go. Which is why I think it was their call, because they do have Sega representatives. They did have Sega representatives, I should say, there at times to make sure things were done right. I think it was their call to make sure he wouldn't write for the female characters anymore unless he had somebody, shadowing him, or unless he had somebody there to give him advice and influence how he would write the characters when it comes to the main books or the main stories in the books. But when it would come to like the backup stories or universe arcs, like let's say Spark of Life, I'm assuming Sega said, no, you're not going to touch those stories. We're going to leave them to the female writers because they know how to write them. So that's just my opinion. But I wouldn't put it past that the Sega reps said, hey, Ian, you're not touching the female characters anymore. And I think we could all totally understand and agree that was probably the best decision, if you will. And when it comes to what's going on with Kevin Smith, and you compare the two, if you will, it's very similar. Not totally similar, but it's similar to the fact that, Mattel may be like, look, Kevin, you hurt our toy sales in the long run, all right? And that's in his. And let me say something about that. I actually had somebody comment on one of my videos I linked at the Cartoon Research page a couple of days ago that said he worked on the series, the Filmation series back in the day, and that it's all about toys. It's going to basically be about selling the toys, and that is true. But Clownfish TV and others are speculating that this could hurt the toy sales in many ways. Like, you may sell the Skeletor and the He-Man figures and the Battle Cat figures more so than anybody else, but when it comes to like the figures you want to have sold, like Teela and Andrea, if you will, and Evil Lynn, those aren't going to sell as much, and that's who you're focusing your show on the most. And when those don't sell, that pretty much is going to send the message of, oh, maybe we shouldn't have let Kevin Smith on board. And I'm guaranteeing you right now, maybe Mattel's regretting that as we speak. So, I'm not going to be surprised if maybe we hear something similar down the line to where Mattel, maybe even Netflix, gets, in contact with Kevin Smith. Maybe Netflix gets in contact with Ted Biaselli and says, enough of this crap. We're losing subscribers, that being Netflix. We lost a lot of sales on toys and collectibles, and that'd be Mattel to Kevin Smith. They said, enough of this crap. We don't want you guys touching any more properties or IP. IPs, properties, franchises that we either want to continue or reboot. We don't want you anywhere near them because you, first of all, don't know. Because I guarantee you, Mattel could go to Kevin Smith and say, you don't know exactly what the show was about and everything, and who the fan base really was, because you constantly lied about, watching it and not watching it, and loving it and not loving it. The trust value is going to go down substantially. And then, as far as Netflix is concerned, they may pull Ted Biaselli and Sally and say, look, enough of your woke, crap, if you will. Enough of this shit. Put that aside, put that on the back burner, and focus on what the show should really be about. Don't put your agenda, don't allow your agendas to influence it. So, that's what's probably going to happen. What happened with Ian Flynn is probably going to happen, if not has happened already, to the likes of Kevin Smith and Ted Biaselli. And again, like I said, just based on what this guy that worked with Kevin, this Chris guy that was on the Midnight Edge morning podcast today, said, he's basically, I would assume from what he's basically saying is that he's upset that Kevin's lying. He's allowing himself to, have to lie about the series and push back against the fans about the series, but that he kind of understands that Kevin regretted it. Kind of probably regrets it, but I think he's also looking at the fact in his own way, through his own words, that he's probably acknowledging that Kevin's going to have some very, very big trust issues to try to, win over, with future projects, even like his Clerks 3 movie and whatever other projects he's going to work on, whether it's movies, shows, comic books, whatever, there are basically going to be a lot of trust issues that have to be worked out because of this, because of this situation. And that is why a lot of people feel that his time in Hollywood is pretty much screwed over. He's pretty much going to go downhill from here. But yeah, as strange as this video may have sounded when it comes to comparing things, when you look at what Kevin Smith does and you compare it to what Ian Flynn did, it's very similar, not totally, but you kind of see exactly where both fan bases felt like they could trust the individual, but then all of a sudden they felt that knife get stabbed right into the back, just like Skeletor did to Adam at the end of episode 5, but this time continuously twist it by basically, promising one thing and then going and doing something else. So let me know what your thoughts are though, guys. How do you feel about this? Comment down below in the comments if you like, as well as in the live chat during the premiere. Like the video, but again, let me know what your thoughts are when it comes to the comparing of the two, and I will talk to you later. Sorry if I rambled a little bit and was repetitive, but that's what happens when you go unscripted. But anyway, let me know what your thoughts are. Comment if you like the video. Let me know how you feel in the live chat, your comments in the live chat during the premiere, I should say, and I'm out.